I'm here today to celebrate our 30th year anniversary. We have a brew going and lots of great people from the industry that we grew up with in the 90s.
30 years. 30 years. I'm one of the few people who was around for that.
How many years are we, 30?
30.
Holy
Today we're here with all these folks from the history books, so to speak, and to grow up with all these guys and still be able to walk into a room 30 something years later and hug everybody and like we're still friends.
You know, how simple it feels for everybody. We've been around each other for so long, and there's some people in this room I haven't seen in many years, and yet they still look to be the same person I met, you know, in 96, 97.
And the amount of knowledge of beer is truly amazing. It's really the Hall of Fame of San Diego Brewing here today.
It's hard to believe that almost all of us have been doing this for 30 years. It's just nice to see, you know, the vibe being much the same. You know, everybody has mad respect for but this company and specifically all the other breweries that are here today. And it's just what made the San Diego brewing scene so great.
First of all, I can't believe it's been 30 years. Like, it makes me like get off my lawn. That's what it makes me feel like saying.
Great to have this reunion today and see a lot of the people who were starting breweries back then and, you know, kind of our peers and stuff. And it just reminds you of what great people were involved and why we all enjoyed being a part of it and creating these great beers and sharing them with each other. And it's just amazing.
You know, the bedrock of this community was built on a lot of the people that are here, and it's very rewarding.
Chris White took a class from USEF at UCSD Extension, I believe is how he was kind of introduced. And
He actually met Yusef Chernay, who was then going to be the brewer for Ballast Point, and he had a UCSD extension course for all grain brewing.
He was in the first cohort, I guess you'd call it, with me there at the little craft center making batches of beer where they were all making ceramics. I just started at Homebrew Mart, being a clerk there.
Seeing the ad for Homebrew Mart, it was a tiny ad, and I saw it and I called up and Jack White answered the phone. I said, "Hey, you saw Homebrew?" And he's like, yeah, we saw the ingredients, come on down.
being just beer nerds, we end up just becoming friends and having fun and talking about different beers and learning about, you know, how to brew.
When I was making homebrew, I wanted to make the best beer possible. I wanted to make great beer. I didn't want to just make beer because it was fun. And so I kind of surrounded myself with people that had that same vision.
People just really having a thirst for exchanging ideas with other homebrewers and potentially, you know, craft brewers if they, you know, if their dreams came true.
From there, did more and more brewing. We're on the ground floor of making the recipe for their beers that eventually would become Ballast Point.
And it was just a hobby shop at the beginning, but that turned out to be quite a catalyst for people who were also nerds and wanted to find other like-minded beer geeks and just, you know, talk nerdy beer stuff. After getting to know Chris a little bit, we were home brewing together, brewing 5-gallon batches in the backyard of his student apartment or in my backyard, or we would just kind of shift around. One of the big kind of complaints as homebrewers that we all had was the lack of availability of really good, readily pitchable liquid yeast.
The key thing for us was we needed a yeast that we could sell to customers that was ready to go. And so I told Chris, hey, we've got other products that takes a day or two to kind of prop up. If we could have a readily pitchable yeast, you know, it would be a game changer for us.
So that was kind of the origin of the idea, and sure enough, Chris had the ability and the facilities to kind of make, you know, a small version of that dream come true. So
Chris started working in this lab that was kind of a research lab, also making yeast for beer, and we started making beer at the lab as well. And that yeast kind of evolved into Homebrew Mart ale yeast.
And I was lucky enough to see White Labs making wort inside of our brewery in the very beginning. The first White Labs vials that came out were the German lager and the California ale yeast, and they were Homebrew Mart ale and Homebrew Mart lager.
And it was just done, you know, for us, and he was just kind of doing it I don't think he necessarily had any ideas to do, a company out of it. I mean, maybe just kind of a side gig, but he was maybe hoping to get like an actual real good paying gig as opposed to starting his own company at the time.
We kind of got ourselves on the map as far as a first homebrew shop to really have a readily pitchable format.
More importantly was the technology behind it, basically. We could actually just open the vial and pitch it straight in. And that was revolutionary at the time.
And then the dry yeasts were just not that great at all. So we were always trying to use the high quality liquid yeast as much as possible.
It was just fun to see them kind of grow with us in the beginning.
He saw potential in it, and we were happy to be in the mix on that and really cheering for him to make a success of something that we needed. And we needed him to be able to do more strains.
With that kind of came other shops starting to request, hey, we want something like this too. And that required Chris to go out from just the Home Brew Mart label, which was our brand, and get into making his own yeast company.
My vision was to start a company that could provide the yeast and lab needs of the growing craft brewing industry. That was a lot of kitchen breweries at the time, whether it was the home kitchen or the kitchen next to the restaurant. And there was not a lot of yeast know-how or laboratory space. And so we focused with pitchable liquid yeast and lab testing, aseptic help, just working with brewers to make better beer.
Like now you can get anything you want. Like just to see where Chris and Lisa have taken this and how much they've helped everybody. I mean, not only the brewing industry, but other industries as well. Just the innovations and their dedication to knowledge on helping the brewers become better brewers.
We had an unusual opportunity because of Carl Strauss, my relative's relationships to major breweries across the world, that we were able to get yeast originally. But as soon as the major breweries really started figuring out that these guys might ultimately be competitors, they stopped selling the yeast to us. So we needed to find a way to source yeast, and Chris filled that void between what home brewers were getting, which was, before Chris came into the scene, not very good or reliable or consistent yeast, to having commercial grade yeast at small enough quantities that craft brewers were able to access them and then use them in developing the industry.
I think having the access to this new form of yeast that we didn't have before kind of brought our beers to the next level, that other places in the country didn't have that kind of effect. We had the ability to make these really specific styles that you just couldn't get back in the day with the yeast that was available.
If you go to Bavaria during the summer and you drink the Bavarian Hefeweizen fresh from the tap there, it is this extraordinary, experience in your mouth. But if you take that same beer and you put it in a bottle and you ship it halfway across the world to San Diego, it loses its charm. So our opportunity was to take a centuries-old Bavarian yeast strain and to use that, even though it's way out on the far end of the continuum of banana and clove in its flavor, but to use that brewing fresh Hefeweizen here in San Diego using White Labs yeast that they provided to us, and we were able to create the Bavarian experience here in people's home in San Diego. And then, of course, the beer went on to win a gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival.
White Labs makes yeast with flavor. They produce flavor. That's one of the best things about using a single strain, liquid yeast, dry yeast, whatever. They make sure that flavor that coming from that yeast is amazing.
We're always nerding out on yeast. Even back in those days, we just knew that yeast was such a critical ingredient. We just knew how important it was to the flavor.
In the modern era, people think that yeast is just something that, you go online and you order, you pick up a phone and call. But when we started in 1989, there was no access really to good commercial grade yeast if you were starting up a brewery, especially a little microbrewery like we were doing.
Then once we started branching out and doing more types of beers and more interesting styles, we became good White Labs customers and appreciated the variety and the quality of the yeast we were able to get right here in San Diego. It was amazing.
As we grew with Ballast Point, the two San Diego home teams kind of just growing at a really similar pace, and it was just amazing to see the kind of the overall kind of momentum that San Diego had as a brewing center of the world for craft beer, and I think overall those two companies might have been a big part of the growth of San Diego beer, the San Diego beer scene overall.
We're all friends, and we like to see everybody kind of grow and prosper together. And having White Labs here is kind of the base of the brewing scene in San Diego, and the quality yeast they're producing, I think really helped make great beers. And those great beers make great friendships. So not only drinking beer with your friend, but actually making beer with your friend and doing collaborations, kind of like we're doing today, is pretty amazing.
So it's remarkable to really see that arc of history occur in the last 36 years, and White Labs has been an integral part of it.
And I took that responsibility very seriously. I wanted to make the best yeast possible, and we never stopped because we still want people to make the best beer in the world.
Little did I know that I would have so many like-minded people in San Diego when I opened up Home Brew Mart. That sort of environment was a little bit of an incubator for those types of conversations and those types of ideas. So it was just naturally collaborative. We didn't really have to plan it to be or organize it to be. It was just naturally this collaborative environment, and we all thrived off of learning from each other.
I think the biggest thing that we had with the San Diego scene in the beginning was the camaraderie between all the breweries. It was this really unique time, I think, back then, where people really liked to get together at the local meetings, and the San Diego Brewers Guild became kind of a powerhouse. The ability to kind of just spitball with the different brewers and talk about your techniques and your styles, and there wasn't kind of this hidden desire to hide your secrets. It was just this open community, and I think that was also just a huge part of the growth of the scene in San Diego, was the sharing that everybody did together.
And I think that the most amazing thing and why San Diego did so well in beer was because we all supported each other. There was no rivalry where like, I'm not sharing what I do. Everybody shared.
We moved to San Diego in late 1995. I think our first contacts in the local brewing industry were Gina and Vince Marcelli from Pizza Port, and very enthusiastic, supportive people, and we felt like, wow, this could be a great place to be.
Vince and Gina at Pizza Port were very accommodating to me and Yusuf in the early days when we were trying to, hopefully add a little brewery to our homebrew supply store.
Everybody was just friends. Like any kind of knowledge, we would share knowledge. Equipment too. I mean, your pump would break, and there was no way to really fix it. So somebody would borrow your pump. I mean, everybody helped each other out. It was something that I wasn't used to either so much, because like from making pizza, if your mixer goes down, the guy at the next pizza place is kind of laughing at you. He's kind of like, looks like I'm going to be busy tonight.
They let us scale one of our recipes up at Pizza Port in Solana Beach out of the kindness of their heart.
We were having such a good time, like just making beer and actually just experiencing and trying new styles of beer. I don't know that it's replicated in a lot of different businesses. I don't know. They're just friends. That's what it was.
It was just that kind of atmosphere where everyone was not just cheering each other on, but were like actively helping their fellow, struggling, want to become a professional brewer, actually take it to the next step.
So we would challenge each other to see who could make, the hoppiest, IPA, or who could make the most extraordinary Russian Imperial Stout. And we would push each other. And because of that, and because of the homebrew community that was here in San Diego, which was one of the strongest homebrew communities in the country, we built a community that accepted all of these extraordinary new types of beers. And it propelled San Diego as a beer city to where now we are considered to be one of the great beer cities on the planet.
The group that we had was just, I think, an unbeatable team back in the day. I think to pioneer kind of these new styles of beers that, you have all these places that are super rich in tradition, whether it's Germany or the Czech Republic, and we were the mavericks of the industry. We didn't know what we were doing, and that kind of made for the greatness. We weren't bound by tradition. We weren't bound by all these laws and Reinheitsgebot or anything. We were just like, let's do this, and we didn't really have anybody checking us. And I think that maverick nature that we had back in the day was the impetus behind what made San Diego craft beer scene so amazing.
We're all getting together. We've been friends for decades now, and we're friends because we kind of gather around this liquid in our glass. And it's very social, but it's also very family. Having that here in San Diego, I think, is really what pushed San Diego into the world scene.
The people that are here helped grow the San Diego beer community because they cared about making great beer. They wanted to make great beer, and there was a need for the best yeast at a local lab, and we were able to do that.
We used to go on, like a bunch of beer trips to like Europe and stuff, and
Yeast hunting in Europe, kind of before we really had a ton of yeast.
we were at and I'm like enjoying, looking around at the history and listening to the tour guide and everything, and then you get to the open vats. They kind of brew for show.
And sometimes they would let us have the yeast and sometimes not. And I had to go, hey, look, what's that over there?
And just like most of us did back in those days, it wasn't filtered or anything, so you could just use their yeast and grow the yeast up.
Back at the hotel room, he was like, and he holds up he had gotten the yeast.
And I had brought little ampoules of auger slants. And I had a little flame and put the yeast on the slant.
It was almost like that, like Jurassic Park, where they have the DNA samples in the shaving cream things. Like everywhere he was going, he's just like.
Got it back through customs. That's where a lot of our yeast strains came from.
It was just like your dedication to your craft is commendable.
Everything we've ever seen, I think, in the history books, beer sticks it out.
There's always a need and a desire for really well-made craft beer. And, we can't take it for granted that it's still available, it's here now, and people can enjoy it all the time.
It'd be great to see the continued success of this beer scene. People really do think of San Diego beer as being some of the best in the world. And the continued success of this community of brewers, people who are passionate about calling San Diego home and really, making their name for themselves here in San Diego is really exciting, and just more of that. It's really cool to be part of it.
Cheers to 30 years. It has been an amazing ride, I think, that none of us expected.
San Diego would never have evolved to be the beer city that it is, and the yeast is a pillar of our success here. So cheers to 30 amazing years, and congratulations, and I'm looking forward to the next 30 and the interesting developments in our industry that you're going to help make. Cheers.
Cheers to everybody at White Labs for the success, and wish you many more.
It's been an amazing 30 years. Can't say enough about what you've done for the craft brewing industry and my career. Amazing job, amazing quality, consistency, and it's science. It's all rooted in science. So, cheers.
Great to be a part of this 30th anniversary celebration for White Labs. Knowing Chris and Lisa and a lot of people here for a long time, really appreciate what they've done for San Diego brewing, and cheers.
Cheers to San Diego beers, and cheers to White Labs being used to brew beer all over the world.
Congratulations to White Labs, to everything you've accomplished, all the people you've helped, all the laughs, all the smiles. It's been a great experience. That's it.
So cheers to everyone who has developed great beers to share among friends and family, and another 30 years and more of sharing this fermented wort into something amazing.
I look forward to the next 30 full of interesting new beers, collaborations, seeing what you all do. Cheers.